Hi, I'm Shannon.
I'm Jason,
and we're the Shibaguyz. And we're here today to talk to you about our new book,
Boro and Sashiko,
Harmonious Imperfection. And we're coming to you today from our studio in Seattle, Washington,
where we work on textiles, including knitting, crocheting, sewing, weaving,
quilting, all the fun stuff.
of
Jason's
the
also a very
things.
accomplished spinner, photographer, graphic artist, videographer. Thank goodness that's how we're coming to you today.
So we pretty much do all of the things.
all the things.
But this is specifically about our book, Boro and Sashiko.
So let's start at the beginning.
A very good place to start.
A very good place to start with the introduction of our book, where we give you the context for the content that comes afterward in the rest of the book.
We've spent a lot of time doing research on this, but it actually started by accident.
Completely by accident. We were actually looking for classes that we could teach for hand sewing.
Right. Just workshops that we could take that were portable,
Right.
didn't include a lot of tools.
Didn't require a lot of tools for toting around to workshops. And we initially were looking for crazy quilts.
Right.
And there was some obscure link that talked about crazy quilts and some connection to some Japanese mending.
Right, this was from the 1865 World's Exhibition.
In Philadelphia.
Correct.
And so, of course, now you may not know us, but if you did know us, you would know that what that would cause would be about
A deep, dark dive down a rabbit hole.
down a rabbit hole of internet and library searches and searches.
Books and books and books and books.
And so what we did is opened up all those internet windows and collected all those books, read documents, and we actually got the PDF for that World's Exhibition.
Yeah, it was the
And found
handout.
found something that said mended Japanese fabrics.
Right, it was in a certain tent somewhere or a building when we're like, wonder what that is. Let's take a look
So
at it.
we went and we did another Google search for Japanese mending.
Right.
Exactly.
Mended
Japanese fabrics. Textiles. Which led us to the work of Chizaburo Tanaka and his collection of Boro and Sashiko garments and accessories in the Amuse Museum in Japan. What we found there were rich textiles with patches and stitches, and right away we were inspired
and intrigued and
like all the creative thoughts started going through our heads about how we might learn about this and do more with it.
Now Sashiko technically means little stabs.
Yes, the rough translation is little stabs. And Boro roughly translate, or Boro, as sometimes it's said in the Boro, roughly means rags.
Right.
And once you start looking at the historic pieces of Boro garments and textiles like futon covers, aprons, those sorts of things, you start seeing what they're talking about is they're using patches of other fabric to cover up and mend these original pieces of fabric.
Because the majority of the people at this particular time in history would only have one or two garments that they kept for their entire lives.
That's right.
So they had to keep patching them and repatching them, and then sometimes those were passed down to children, to grandchildren, to great-grandchildren, and these garments just kept being patched, and they became more and more textural with all of these different stitches and these different patches all over them. They're absolutely stunning.
So Boro refers to the patches on the textiles, while Sashiko
refers to the actual stitching that holds everything together.
That's right, and you can have Sashiko
without Boro,
but
you cannot have Boro without Sashiko.
Because you need Sashiko to hold the Boro patches in place. Now, we don't want to give away all the good stuff that's in the book.
But there is plenty of it in that introduction section.
There is, and that specifically gives you, as we said, the context for the content. We did make sure that we did our research. We definitely did our homework.
Oh, yeah. We spent a lot of time at the Seattle
Art Museum, yes. Looking at the collection of the Seattle Asian Art Museum.
Specifically with their textile division, including all of the...
Their curators, and so we reached out to them and said, hey, can we look at a couple of these things? And
they said yes!
They said yes. So all the details about that are in the book as well. You're going to want to check that out. And there's some photos Oh my word.
Right,
So
a little
that-
behind the scenes stuff.
behind the scenes action going on there, and so we had a great time studying there and looking at those, and it really confirmed a lot of what we were learning
Right.
and what we had no clue
Right,
had we
right.
not been able to see them in person.
So before we even get to the stitching,
We go over the tools.
which include things like your needle, the thimble, the thread.
All of the actual physical things you have to hold in your hands to actually make stitches, and that includes thread,
Which is
which the thread is a big part of what we studied.
Right.
And we even developed our own collection, the Shibaguyz Fab
Sashiko
Sashiko Essentials
Essentials
Thread Collection from Aurifil Thread.
Right. So yeah, it's 12-weight thread, and it works beautifully for this. We talk about that quite a bit in the book as to why we chose it and why we think it's actually the best one that you could use.
That's right. There's our Fab Sashiko Essentials collection, thread collection from Aurifil, and there's also our Mighty 10 hand sewing thread that we use, which is a 50-weight cotton
It's
thread.
a 50-weight cotton thread, perfect
Also
for
from Aurifil.
hand sewing.
And we do the hand sewing and the machine sewing in this book. Because
There is some machine
We
sewing
use that
in there.
thread for all of those types of projects. And the majority of those tools are available directly from Clover.
From Clover.
That's right. The things like the palm thimble, the special needles that we use.
The marking pen, which is amazing.
Oh,
It
that
is
white,
perfect for
the white marking pen is beautiful because if you mess up, it's heat erasable.
you just iron it right out and it's gone.
They also have some felt tip markers that we use that are great for more textural fabrics and things that maybe lighter fabric that won't show the white marks from the white marking pen. And then we move on to the fabric because
Yay,
that's
the texture stuff, all the stuff behind
so
it.
all the stuff that you see behind us. We used the main fabrics that we used were scraps.
Well, yeah,
We
there's
used
lots,
a lot of scraps
and lots
from,
of scraps.
from previous projects because that's what this is about, right?
Boro
the
is all about
Boro
scraps.
is the scraps and the rags. But we did have a lot of fabric from cherrywood hand-dyed fabrics.
Robert Kaufman fabrics.
Robert Kaufman fabrics with their Brussels washer linen. This red, this
right
jacket that
behind
you
me
see
there.
right behind you here,
yeah.
and some things like Michael Miller fabrics,
Michael
which is
Miller.
what you're seeing on this project right behind me over here.
Yeah, lots and lots of Michael Miller.
Lots of Michael Miller fabric, and the cherrywood fabric we talked about is from this wall hanging right here, exclusively cherrywood. As well as wait until you see the kimono-inspired long jacket.
Right, 'cause
using
it's pretty.
Right, using Michael Miller Cotton Couture Jet
Jet
Black.
Black.
So we used a lot of brand name fabrics as well as just scraps that are completely unidentifiable.
Just stuff from our collection.
And from
things that
his
we've
mother's
used.
collection.
Well, that's true,
When
stuff
his
from
mother
my-
passed away a few years ago, we actually inherited her entire sewing room.
So she's all over this book.
She's all over. Mom, thanks. And also old jeans
Yes.
that we have outgrown or that Jason has completely destroyed.
Or just completely fell apart.
that Jason has completely
I
destroyed.
don't know what you're talking about.
Because he completely destroys his clothing. Some shirts from Jason. There's even one of my old not that one. There's even one of my old ties in there, but definitely a lot of denim. One of the projects is completely recycled denim. We're going to talk about that one in just a minute. Now, once we get through how to use the tools,
Then we get into the actual stitches.
stitches, the part that everybody's probably going to skip all the other parts and go to, but don't do that.
No. Because this is really important stuff. This is where we actually teach you how to put your needle into the fabric and make the stitches go.
Now in this book, what we did is we arranged the stitches in an order where they take you from your basic unshin exercises.
Unshin means handling the needle.
Handling the needle, and so we teach you how to actually handle this harpoon of a needle that you're going to be using in that. And it's very unique. It's a very unique action how you actually work the needle with that palm thimble and how it moves through the fabric, and indeed the fabric moves over the needle.
Right. This is not your usual up and down motion
Absolutely
of a running
not.
stitch.
That's right. There's a very specific way that you have to handle your needle and make your stitches that is characteristic of Sashiko. Any other way of doing it may be Sashiko inspired.
But it is not
Sashiko. So we start out with unshin, how to handle your needle and how to move, and then we get into the basic stitches that you need to know.
Right.
And then start building on those. So we did this in a very scholastic way. Right. Again, we're teachers.
We've been teachers
we can't help it.
Over 30 years.
Yeah, for over 30 years collectively. And we've been teaching together for 12 years now. And it just kind of naturally falls into that, how do we look at a subject, how do we break it down so that it goes in stages.
So that anyone can pick up this book and go from step 1, step 2, step 3, and they get it.
Now, what does that mean to you as a shop owner? As a shop owner, that means that you can then base classes on this book.
Right.
You can start from the very beginning and right away be making a collection of stitches. As a matter of fact, the first thing we start with is Hitomizashi stitches.
Hitomizashi, which is one stitch Sashiko.
And that has a we call this the iconic first stitches.
The iconic first stitches.
We call it that because these stitches right away you start recognizing, oh, I've seen that before.
That's really pretty. Yeah, I recognize
you'll be able to see some of those stitches in some of the photos. We have some referential photos from the art museum and from the collection of our friend Roland.
Roland from Ancient Grounds.
From Ancient Grounds, who owns a coffee shop here in Seattle, right by the Seattle Art Museum. He let us see his entire collection as well, and we have some photos in there. Thank you, Roland. If you ever see this video, thank you. But it specifically shows how some of these first stitches that your students are going to be doing and that you start learning in this book are things that we saw in those textiles in both the museum and in Roland's collection. So as a shop owner, you can use this book as a reference guide for how to actually teach some of these others. Put the book in their hands, package together some of the products and the tools that they need to get started.
Very basic things that are easy to carry that you probably already do carry in your shop.
You probably already do carry, or if not, you will now. And you can put together workshops and projects, which we'll get to in just a minute. Project classes, not just here's how you do it, but project classes that apply those principles so you can just keep going. So again, we broke everything down scholastically so that it starts at the beginning with your unshin and starts building with your first stitches and builds on each one of those.
We go to a basic running stitch, and then from a running stitch, we cross the running stitch. And then we do diagonals based upon those crosses.
And that also teaches you the order of operation because there are rules.
There are rules.
There are rules with Sashiko, and we follow those rules to teach you how to do it kind of inherently after you've worked through the practices in the book. So that's it with Hitomizashi stitches. Then we move on to Moyuzashi,
which is something completely different.
Which behind us you're seeing a combination. If you're peeping those things behind us, you're seeing a combination of Hitomizashi and Moyuzashi stitches. I know, yeah, those.
Are they pretty?
Look
at the stars.
I'm sure that someplace in here there'll be photos.
I'll do a little something flying through
where you'll see the things. But Hitomizashi and Moyuzashi are completely different looking forms of Sashiko.
Right.
In fact, Hitomizashi, you could look at it as being more geometric.
Probably.
It still looks like some pictures, but Moyuzashi puts in curves and wavy lines, and you can actually make picture shapes out of it.
Right. So once you get the idea from the unshin exercises, we continue on the book and we give you a multitude of actual stitches that your students can choose from as they are doing some of these projects. Included along with that are charts. So we give you all of the instructions for reading the charts so that they can pick up the book and actually go, okay, I can make this. I understand how to actually draw this on my fabric.
That's right.
And once it's drawn on the fabric, I know how to stitch it.
That's right. The Sashiko stitch charts in this book are the visual representation of the stitches you're about to make. And so we break it down for you step by step so that you can learn to read those for more successfully making the stitches.
And also in the book, we list those stitch charts basically in an order of difficulty. So we begin with the easiest ones and then build and build and build and build.
So every stitch pattern has a chart along with it, and there'll be visual references for what the finished stitch swatch should look like. Now, one of the most common modern adaptations of Sashiko and Boro is visible mending. That's right. Now, this is ancient visible mending. Because it's exactly what Boro and Sashiko were used for. That's right, for mending tears or burns or holes. And even more specifically, it was for reinforcing fabric before it let loose.
Right.
Because the original fabrics these folks were working with were very loosely woven, and they were made out of things other than cotton.
We're talking ramie and linen.
Mulberry, things like that, things that they could grow. It was a very harsh, cold climate.
Right.
And they were wearing very thin clothing, so they would layer fabrics together.
And then stitch them together in order to give themselves a little more warmth.
And also, they would patch. They would keep things, as Jason mentioned earlier. They didn't have a lot of fabric in the first place. They didn't have a lot of garments in the first place. So the idea was to maintain those garments and patch them or reinforce the fabrics when and if they needed to.
Yeah, we even talk about this in one point in the book, that there was a rule where if a piece of fabric was at least as large as 3 beans.
3 beans, and
three
probably
beans,
they were talking about soybeans.
So not terribly large, but if you could fit 3 beans into the piece of fabric, it was large enough to keep and large enough to use.
And to use in a mending patch. And we did confirm that. So the concept of visible mending, first of all, to us was a little foreign anyway.
Right.
Visible mending, because
we grew up in the area where you didn't let people see your tattered
mends.
clothing.
I mean, you always. I mean, let's face it, you always could. You always could see it. But this idea of visible mending, if you look at a lot of the techniques in visible mending now that folks are using and that we teach currently as well,
yes, we do,
are based on the Sashiko stitches and Boro patches. So we do cover how to actually take some of the stitches that we've taught you and use that in visible mending, specifically showing you a patch and how to work that, and then you can take that from there. And that is also a very good way, if you're a shop owner, to use this to teach a visible mending workshop.
And of course to sell the associated products that go along with it.
Of course. We designed the projects in this book so that they were accessible to the first-time stitcher who had not made any sewing projects before,
as well as experienced sewers that were comfortable with quilting or garment making.
That's right. So let's dive in and take a closer look at those projects. Boro pillows. Now this is 2 projects in one.
Ooh.
It's 2 different types of projects, 2 different types of pillows, one of which we used recycled fabrics from Eileen Fisher Renew, an actual garment, and we've made a shirt backing on this. So make sure that you check this one out because this will make a fantastic class for your shop, for your folks to actually use some of their old garments.
Right. Then we have the reversible knot bag.
The reversible knot bag is one of my favorite. Of course, I have a thing for bags.
Right.
I'm going to say that about every bag that I've ever made. The reversible knot bag is just what it sounds like. It's a traditional Japanese-style knot bag. We made this one a little bit larger.
A little bit larger, and it is also completely reversible.
As the name says, reversible. We made it reversible with a gorgeous fabric that we just couldn't bear to use for anything else. It is used on the inside of this, and so we take you step by step through the process of not only how to make this unique knot bag style of bag, but also how to do Jason's awesome job at turning the putting the lining on and then turning it right side out and sewing that back up.
Then there's one of my personal favorites, the Too Cute for the Groceries tote.
Yeah, it can be your personal favorite if you want, but I'm the one who gets to carry it.
He's the one who gets to carry it.
Because I really do have a bag problem. I love bags, and these tote bags, we have probably about a dozen of these tote bags around,
At least, yes.
Because I get excited about different fabrics and different things, and I put them together, and honestly, a tote bag is the fastest way that I can put them together. We teach this as a beginner level and entry level project a lot.
A lot.
Next to the pillows, this is the easiest project that you're going to do. I think it's even easier than the pillows.
Probably. Then we'll have the Boro toolkit roll.
Oh, I just love this one because it's completely recycled out of the leg of a pair of jeans.
Right.
We took the selvage and the leg of the jeans itself, and we made the cutest little kit roll. Basically, we made a sewing kit roll that we've always wanted for ourselves.
This is the thing that you just roll up, you toss in your bag, and you've got all of your stuff there waiting for you, ready to stitch.
The Sashiko sampler wall hanging. This is that one that is behind us.
It's right behind us right now.
And it's the one that uses all cherrywood hand-dyed fabric. So do yourself a favor and try this. And of course, it's heavy, as all of them are, in our Fab Sashiko Essentials thread collection. But this project is really designed to let you get in there with your hands and try a lot of the fancy-pantsy stitch patterns.
Because you can put whatever stitches you want on it where you want it.
And that's right. With all the projects, we map out exactly how we laid out the stitches. Not only are there patterns and templates within every one of the patterns, whether it's the tote bag or the knot bag or the kit roll, but with a project like this, we show exactly the dimensions for the fabric that you need to cut and the exact placement of the stitches that we used, as well as the stitches that we used in each one of those spots. But as Jason said, the beauty of it is you can go back through and put your own favorite stitches in there if you'd like. The rectangle wrap vest.
This is a really, really fun pattern because...
It's because it's one of my favorite garments to wear. I mean, personally, this is the type of, it's almost like that draped front style vest that everybody wears.
Right, but it is made out of a single rectangle.
A rectangle of fabric with a beautiful armhole opening that we show you a special way that we encase those armholes. And then it is an abstract style of Moyuzashi Sashiko. It's a very modern interpretation that you see a lot of textile artists doing now. We adapted this to a waveform pattern.
Right. And again, this particular piece is also reversible.
Reversible.
You can wear it one direction and then turn it
shows
inside
all the
out.
patches, or the other way just shows the stitches.
We'll follow that up with the Lotus Pond Throw.
This is specifically designed based on our study and breakdown of Boro patchwork.
And how they actually lay on top of one another.
And on a personal note, this Lotus Pond Throw is special to us because it actually is a place that we visit here in the Seattle Arboretum.
We even had a family photo taken there.
We did. We had a family photo taken there. It's a beautiful little pond that we get to go to. And what you're seeing in the quilt itself, not only is it a modern distillation of Boro patchwork, but it represents the boards on the dock that we sit on and the walkway that goes out over the water that the Shibaguyz actually run out onto and look into the water at the ducks. Now, throughout all of our research, we probably looked at, I easily say, thousands of pieces of Boro textiles.
Yeah.
And what we've done from that is we've distilled a method for actually recreating the look of traditional Boro. There are no holes in this patch, but we love the look of that patchwork, and so we recreated that here in the Lotus Pond Throw. You'll also see kind of a modern feel to it in that we have our interpretation of the lotus floating in the pond. The kimono-inspired long jacket.
This was definitely inspired from kimonos. It is not a true kimono because it only has a few pieces as compared to the 12 plus.
A kimono that, depending on the style of kimono that you make, they have many, many different moving parts in it.
But this one is based upon rectangles.
That's right. We distilled the essence of a kimono into a long jacket. And specifically, this is not a formal kimono. We did this in the style of a casual, more like a summer style kimono. Or just something that would be naturally worn around the house. We then dressed it up. We used a very simple fabric. This is that Michael Miller jet black fabric that we were telling you about.
It was so nice to work with.
That is so beautiful to work with. We use that to really, the simplicity of the fabric and of the design itself, to really showcase some amazing Sashiko stitching on this. We were even surprised with how well it turned out.
Really
Standing back and taking a look at this when it is finished, this is going to be a showcase piece in your collection for sure.
And finally is the Hanten short jacket.
That's right. A Hanten was a jacket that was worn by the everyday workers. We saw these for farmers, for fisher people, for people who just wore them around as casual jackets.
Right. This particular jacket does have Boro patches on the front and the back.
That's right. And we did this specifically in red on red patches because this fabric is yummy. This is Brussels washer linen.
From Robert Kaufman.
From Robert Kaufman Fabrics. And we just loved the fabric so much we couldn't bear to break it up. But, again, we wanted to give all of this a more modern interpretation. So we did red on red patchwork. We followed that same Boro, distilled Boro interpretation that we did. And I think you'll really love the way the red on red patchwork actually makes a secondary pop of interest when you make this jacket. And of course, we finished all those patches off and did some gorgeous decorative work around the sash collar in our Fab Sashiko Essentials thread collection from Aurifil.
We used two different threads.
That's right.
There was one that is pure red, and then the other one...
gorgeous red. I so love this red.
And the other one is actually a variegated color.
Variegated with all the fire colors, I like to say. It's red and orange and yellow, and it's just such a gorgeous variegated, and held double the way that you use Sashiko thread. It makes a gorgeous,
you get some shading,
effect,
some stuff going on
over the course of this. So definitely check this one out. If you've never made a garment before, this is a great place to start.
So you can see that these projects include a little bit of something for everybody.
That's right. From the first-time stitcher all the way through more advanced folks who would like to get into something just a little bit different than they're used to. From my favorite, bags, to garments and quilts, to even that cute little tool roll that I just love.
Right.
You have projects that you can work on with your students and with your customers. Everything from quick one-day projects
into multiple day projects.
That's right, things that could take like 2 or 3 days for a lot of the classes like we teach, or multi-week classes that last over a longer period of time. And the whole time, what that means, you'll be able to package together the book with the kits, including the tools and the thread, to be able to actually complete the projects and work on those. So thanks so much for watching today.
We are so excited about the way this book came out. So excited
how it turned out. This was definitely a labor of love for us over a couple of years, and we're very excited to be able to share this with you. So thanks for watching.
And again, the book is Boro and Sashiko,
Harmonious Imperfection,
from C&T Publishing.
So order your copies today, and be sure to grab our Fab Sashiko Essentials thread collection and our Mighty 10 thread collection, both from Orifil Thread, and all of the tools you could possibly need.
Lots of tools.
From Clover. I know, toys to play with, right? I mean, that's really what it's all about, right? And fabric.
If you have any questions that we can answer for you, please.
We're the Shibaguyz.
We're the Shibaguyz. You can find us at Shibaguyz. That's Shibaguyz with a Z.com.